Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. We have to have a talk that many of you may not be interested in having, but one that I think is a conversation we need to at least entertain. It's something I've hinted at my thoughts about throughout multiple Starfield videos, and at least at the time of recording this, we don't know which way Bethesda will go, but I wanted to talk about the possibility of an extended Starfield delay. Right now, as it stands, we know that Starfield is primed to drop in the first half of 2023. But what would happen if Bethesda said, and Xbox said, it would take a little bit longer? We're going to explore that mindset, that possibility in today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Starfield news, information, conversations, you're in the right place. Please consider subscribing. With that, let's talk about Starfield, shall we? Now, I was holding back on this topic for some time. It was a bit of a, in my mind, a rainy day topic. Like, when's a good time to talk about Starfield? And watch, with my luck, I'll drop this video, and within a week, Bethesda will give us the release date, and it'll be in the first half of 2023. Doesn't mean it's all locked in, but at least we can expect that when Bethesda commits again, they're likely going to want to land whatever that date is. Otherwise, the pressure's going to really be on. Now, why am I a proponent for the Starfield delay? I'm not going to get too deep into the obvious stuff, by the way. The obvious stuff being, oh, it'll be a higher quality game, the polish will be there. That's, of course, a big component of the conversation, but I think it goes well beyond that in the terms of what this game means. So let me explore that a bit. The reason I'm a proponent for a Starfield delay, if need be, into the second half of 2023 is not even just because of quality, but what we have to understand here is we've been around for a lot of Bethesda Game Studios games, right? So many of them, and all of them are important titles. But I don't think there's been a single more important title out of perhaps Fallout 3 where Bethesda needed to get it right. You see, the reason I say Fallout is because they were adopting a brand new series and they had the pressure of taking what was something that was already great and making it more mainstream, accessible, while retaining at least some of its depth. And I think they did a fantastic job with that. Some will disagree. But otherwise, they could just continue to rock into the Elder Scrolls flow and they'd be just fine. That's their baby. They know what they're doing with it. Starfield represents a new beginning for Bethesda Game Studios. And I don't say that to hype you up, but I do believe well and truly this is the mindset at Bethesda Game Studios. I've talked endlessly about how I love what I'm hearing from Bethesda Game Studios interview after interview, just what they're saying, where they're focusing, writing, dialogue, choices, exploration, depth. They're not focusing on the things that make the game mainstream. They're focusing on what makes a Bethesda Game Studios game good. And to me, that's more important because Bethesda Game Studios games were always great and people would come to them for their very unique flavor. The reason why Starfield, though, is so important is, like I said, it marks the beginning of a new era. An era that I imagine Bethesda hopes will be relatively bug-free. See, Xbox and Bethesda always worked at their best together, dating back to Morrowind, when that was a console exclusive, still is a console exclusive over there. And what that did for AAA RPGs at the time moving forward, the sense of freedom, choice, exploration there. Has it aged poorly? In some respects, yes, but it's still a magnificent video game. And we saw history repeat itself with Oblivion, a game that felt larger than life, but was made by sub 100 people at a single studio. That was incredible for its time. It's even more mind-blowing now. And as development became more complex, it started to catch up with Bethesda, as we already know, with Fallout 4 and especially 76, where they tried to, hammer on a multiplayer component into an old, dated engine. We know the whole story there. And so now here we are, returning to the beginning of a cycle. Bethesda, Xbox in the same bed again, starting a brand new adventure together, and that's Starfield. Starfield's importance cannot be stated enough. Not just because of hype. Again, this is a hype-free conversation. We're just trying to be objective here. The reason Starfield is important is because it's a statement to the entire industry in my eyes. And I know for a lot of consumers who are not hardcore into gaming, this type of stuff does not matter. It's just, oh, cool. open world space game by Bethesda. Nice. That's 100% a thing I am considering here. But for the enthusiasts, for the investors, for potential acquisitions by Xbox, this is a statement video game. There are going to be other ones that are, I think, supporting pieces. What does Redfall come out and look like? What does Hellblade 2 come out and look like? What does Obsidian's Avowed come out and look like? And the list goes on. How does Xbox benefit each of these studios individually? But what's been at the center of the marketing, the center of the Xbox hype, has no doubt been Starfield. That is the game that has been selected by the audience as this is what we're looking forward to, whether you are in the Xbox ecosystem or not. But of course, for the Xbox ecosystem, this matters quite a bit. It's an exclusive. And when and if Xbox is to get this right alongside Bethesda, the statement that will be made is one of two things. We are able to take a studio that made amazing games, but has a history of bugs, and we helped them clean up their act and made the most polished, most played, by the way, is one of their goals, Bethesda Game Studios game ever. Or option number two, history has repeated itself. Xbox just has deeper pockets, but Bethesda has tripped and stumbled into another bug-ridden game. And make no mistake, I think Starfield will have bugs. Just by the sheer scope and magnitude of this game, I'd be shocked if it didn't have bugs. But there can be a relative level of polish where bugs aren't intrusive. If there's the occasional pop in for textures or whatever, we can get over stuff like that. But of course, even while I haven't had such a torturous experience like it seems like much of the internet has had, Bethesda games are buggy, especially 76, but they always need the unofficial patch from the modders. What this can be is a statement that Bethesda is at their best with Xbox. Why is that statement so important to make? It's because if they can do that, then what this means is that other companies that may want to work with Xbox will take that step forward with a level of confidence knowing, hey, if you can give us the Starfield treatment, we can make something special. If you give us time, attention, and money, which can only go around so far, but if you give us that, we will work with you. And that will go far and wide for Xbox, for potential partners in third-party exclusives, to Game Pass deals, to their Japanese support that they are in dire need of. That's to me what I think Starfield will indicate. A seismic statement to the industry on what Xbox can do when they're heavily involved with your AAA exclusive. Because this is the game everyone's watching. It does mean there is a difference of importance, but I don't want to sit here and dumb down what it means if Starfield stinks, but Avowed is great. I think that then makes a bigger statement to the quality of Obsidian Studio in that particular hypothetical example. Whereas with Starfield, if they get it right, I think it says a lot more about Xbox as a publisher. Something that they've struggled with for some time. Outside of Turn 10 and the Coalition, Xbox has stumbled a lot, dating back to the Xbox One generation, as a publisher. But of course, when the studios are self-governed and they do a great job running themselves, things do seem to be fine. Like I said, with Turn 10, the Coalition, or if you want to go really far back, with Insomniac, with Sunset Overdrive. You know what I'm saying? There's a trend there where these studios that are already known to be good and run themselves perfectly fine have already produced great stuff, and Xbox is sort of there for the ride. But it feels like Xbox is here in the passenger seat with Bethesda, working alongside them as development progresses in Starfield, and they need to get it right. So I wanted to focus on that quite a bit, like the insistence that this isn't a game that you just have a hiccup on and go, dang, we'll get them next time. Maybe you will with other projects like the Elder Scrolls 6, the goalposts will be moved because that's the magnum opus apparently for Todd Howard. Certainly that is a thing we have to consider. But again, I can't overstate the importance. That ties back into our conversation here about the delay of Starfield. The delay of Starfield is something that we have to be ready and willing to accept. What we cannot have happen here, Xbox fans, is another Halo Infinite situation. And I'm not talking on the magnitude of post-launch support being that poor and how the game was buggy and how custom games are still busted. No, I'm talking about the pressure that was put on 343 by fans to release this game in the same way we saw with Cyberpunk as well. It got delayed again and people were like, no, it's gotta come out now. It does not. Now, Halo may be an oddly specific example where we have a game that was in development for a longer time, and while development did reboot midway through, so technically Halo Infinite wasn't in development for that full 6+ years that we've heard so much about, still, it stands that that game was in a production cycle for quite some time. So some may see that as unfair, but there is a history in this industry of once you hit delay number 2, people start saying, okay, that's it. Next time, it's got to come out. And I understand that. You want your product, you bought your system possibly for it. It may force you to explore your tastes and find something new. But I understand that you want something that you're ready to pay for. But I do think Xbox fans need to be ready for this, because I think the MO within Xbox Game Studios should be get this game right at all costs. And if it requires multiple delays, let it be so. Because when this game does come out, if the conversation surrounding it has indicated anything, if the attention it's received across the industry has indicated anything at all about Starfield, it's that when this game drops, it will be a industry shaker. Whether it be for better or for worse, we don't know. Remember, for my OG Fallout 4 fans, remember those days? Remember when Fallout 4 was announced and it was inescapable? It was on ESPN, mainstream news. It was literally everywhere. And I think we're quick to forget that, understandably so, because in between then and now was Fallout 76, which felt like a off the cliff. Sorry, I can't whistle. I'm really bad at it. But imagine I was whistling and down went Bethesda. I understand why it's easy to forget, but we just have to reel the clock back a little bit more and think of when Skyrim dropped, the amount of coverage that was around that game, the cultural movement that game was. That is what Starfield can and probably will be. And Xbox is wise to recognize that and make sure that when it drops, it is like an Elden Ring, where for months and months and months and months, it's all you hear about. And also, what they need to make sure they have in order is the post-launch plans, right? I know that a lot of people just want to focus on the game here and now, and that is important, but Bethesda Game Studios makes some of the best damn expansions in the industry. You got to be ready to have the game in its finished state and be like, okay, we can comfortably move on despite any bugs that may pop up. We can comfortably move on and focus here on this expansion or this DLC, this post-launch support. And we have yet to really learn what that'll be like with things such as Creation Club. How will that work in Starfield if it's there? Console mods, if it's there, how will that work in Starfield? These are all launch options that we really need to consider. There are more systems in a Bethesda Game Studios game than I think we're giving credit for. It's not just the wide, deep open world that we already know of from their games. There's much more components there that if they can have supported day one, it'll be a really strong position for Xbox to be in. So ladies and gentlemen, that's my stance on Starfield. I think it's a game that if they need to delay, they should delay. And I know that's not a roaring hot take, but it is something that does ruffle some feathers. People are very much like, no, it's got to come out. It's time. And I say, no, like if it needs to come out in the second half of 2023, let it do so. Because I even think fans should want Xbox to nail this game, because as Xbox players, you will benefit the most from that, because they will absolutely get more deals, more acquisitions done, because they can literally point to a case example and say, this is what we did in partnership with Bethesda. Of course, there will be a laundry list of examples, but I think at the top is going to be Starfield as that shining example of what it means when Xbox buys someone and works with them on their exclusives and doesn't make, as they've argued so much with Activision about, gaming a better place. So those are just my thoughts. Certainly you're free to disagree. I'm all for it. I'm just excited to see what you have to say. So please do fire away on your thoughts regarding a potential Starfield delay. Other than that, take great care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.